James, on Monday you said you don't think Drew gets enough credit and that you know why. I just wanted to follow up and ask why you don't think he gets enough credit.
Yeah, obviously if I wanted to get into those details at that time or this time, I would have spoke on it. I appreciate the question, understand the question, but yeah, not interested in getting into that right now.
James, Davion Collins getting some time. I know part of that probably because Elliott wasn't available last week, but he's a guy we heard so much about during the offseason, especially from you in preseason. Why exactly? I mean, can you talk through his journey? Because we didn't see a lot of him consistently defensively, but he's flashed a little bit of late.
Yeah, he's a kid that transferred into the program. When he got here, he was like, even after being in college, he was like 165 pounds. And he just has embraced everything that we've asked him to do. And he works his tail off in the weight room, works his tail off at practice every single day. He's always got a huge smile on his face, playing on special teams, and really just made a significant move in competitive periods, good versus good, whether it's one-on-ones, whether it was Skelly's, or all during the spring and all during training camp. And we felt like he'd be in a position to help us this year. You never know exactly how the role's going to play out, but he's just a kid that's really bought in to the things that we ask our guys to do, and I think he enjoys it here. I think he's one of those guys that he's very well liked on the team by his teammates and the coaches, and I think as he continues to have opportunities and make some plays, his confidence will continue to grow, and you'll see his role continue to grow as well in the program. So, he's that close to making some big time plays for us. So, he'll grow from it and learn from it. But we're big fans of his.
James, you said on Monday Tom Allen doesn't get enough credit for what he's done with the defense. Can you maybe point to anything specific that you feel like needs more recognition for?
Well, I just think what happens sometimes, I don't care what profession or what job you're in, depending on who you follow, plays a role in how you're perceived. And he follows Manny Diaz, and we have one of the top defenses in the country. So you come in here, and I think defensively we were ranked, depending on which formula you're looking at, anywhere between 2, 3, or 4. So unless you're 1, it don't feel like you got a whole lot better. But I think he's done a really good job of coming in here and adapting. We got one of the top defenses in the country. I think our defense is our highest rated unit, and it just like no one's talking about it. So I think he's done a really good job of, been a head coach for a long time and getting back into the defensive coordinator role. And the staff's been great, the team's been great, and holding on to a lot of the things that we were already doing here, but then putting his own stamp on it. So I just think it's an example of kind of who you follow, and he probably had the toughest follow, so give him a ton of credit what he's doing, and the players have been really, really good, and very different personality, very different approach, but I think he's doing a great job, and I think our whole defensive staff is.
James, how does an undersized center in college become such a good tight ends coach? What are the things about Ty and his background that maybe allowed him to adjust to not completely different position, but something a little bit different?
Well, first of all, he's the son of a high school coach, so he knows ball. He loves ball. He studies it. So you look at kind of his background, I think he's got a chance to be a coordinator one day. He studies the game, and a lot of times coaches live in their world or their box, and they know their responsibility, but they don't know the rest of it. And he always has been a student of the game. But I think the other thing is I'm a big fan of having O-line coaches at the tight end position, because all these tight ends, they want to run routes and catch balls, and most of them did that in high school. But you need somebody to develop them as a blocker as well. So I just think you can't have enough O-line guys on your staff. You can't have enough quarterback guys on your staff because they see the big picture. But that's usually the area where tight end coaches and tight ends in general are behind is in the running game, because a lot of them are receiver guys or tight end guys, and it's all about what they do in the passing game. Very similar to my argument with all these awards. You know, it's just based on catches. You know, and if it's the receiver award, then I get it. But if not, it should be about being a complete tight end, and I think blocking is part of the job description.
James, speaking of awards, we found out today that Abdul's one of 4 finalists for the Lombardi Award. You've talked a lot about him, not just this season, but throughout his time at Penn State. But specifically to that award, what makes you feel that he be worthy of being honored as the top defensive lineman in college football?
Yeah, he's very, very disruptive, and he's got plays that flash. You know, whether you're a football kind of lifer and a football, somebody that really studies the game, like all you guys, he's got plays that really flash. But even if you're not, he's got plays that you're like, wow, that those are impressive plays. I think it took him a little time to get comfortable at defensive line and specifically defensive end, but he's a disruptive player. When you talk about tackles for loss, and you talk about sacks, and you talk about pressures, and you talk about offensive coordinators spending all week on how they're going to manipulate their protections to deal with him, he's an impactful player. The good thing is that he's on these lists for these awards. The bad thing is none of these awards have adapted to the new college football, and all these awards are still during the season when all of us are playing. And they want you to come to the awards, but we got practice. So some of the awards have gone virtual, or they've moved the actual award banquet to after the season. But I think a lot of these awards need to look at it, and with the college football model changing, they're going to have to change and adapt with it as well.
James, going along with the model change to the sport, obviously I know you guys are focused on Minnesota, but how do you try and navigate, a month ahead where it's portal, it's the early signing period, obviously, I know you've said before about the bigger staff size, how that helps, behind the scenes, how do you guys maybe try and handle some of those things?
Yeah, that was going to be my answer. That's where having a bigger staff is helpful. I think there's a lot of arguments about people seeing the size of the staffs. I don't know how you do it today without that. But then not only that, it's not just the size thing. They got to be really, really qualified people, and we're fortunate here. We got a group of people that have been with us for a long time, and they're working on those things. That's what they're doing 16 to 18 hours a day. So, even signing day is going to be different. We're going to have signing day, and typically it's the whole staff. It's going to be me and the recruiting staff, and the rest of the coaches are going to be, doing the game planning and doing all those types of things. So we do take some time every single week where myself and those guys will organize it, and then we'll include the coaches in the part of the conversation that they need to be a part of, but have it already organized and ready to go, so we're being as efficient as possible. And then typically we try to do it late in the week, like on a Thursday and a Friday when most of the game planning and everything is done. We try to do it then as well, but it takes a lot of organization and vision and communication to make sure everybody's on the same page, and that I'm hearing and Andy Frank's hearing and Kenny's hearing from our staff to make sure that we're formulating the best plan based on all the information that we have.
James, now that you're through a bulk of the conference schedule, how would you evaluate, the strength of this new Big Ten?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting because there's this battle going on right now out, in terms of the narrative of college football, of who should be in, right? We talked about this before. It was 4, and everybody argued, we got to go to 12. We get to 12, and what's happening? Everybody's arguing that 14, 15, 16 are getting screwed. And we talked about the basketball tournament, right? How many's that? 68. And what happens there? 69, 70. So this is part of it. but I'll say this. I mean, obviously I'm concerned about Penn State, and obviously I'm concerned about the Big Ten. But I'm one of the few guys that have been a head coach in both conferences, and to me, the right thing to be talking about is the two best conferences in all of college football is the Big Ten and the SEC, and we should have the most teams in. I don't think there's any question to that. I think where it becomes problematic is when you have rules for certain teams and certain conferences to get in, and maybe people don't feel like they're actually in the top 12. So I get it. We're fortunate. We're part of the two conferences that I think everybody would agree are the two strongest conferences. I don't think we need to take shots in the Big Ten at the SEC because that's been proven over time, and I don't think the SEC should be taking shots at the Big Ten. We're in a really good position, both conferences. I don't think there's any argument there, and the reality is, whether people's feelings are hurt or not, these two conferences need to have the biggest number and the biggest presence in the playoffs because we've earned it throughout the season.
Coach, looking at Minnesota and their ability to make plays on defense and their turnover margin, how important is it for offensive efficiency, especially in this game? Similar to what Drew did against Purdue, how important is that?
Yeah, very important. The stats that we talk about week in and week out, it's the turnover ratio and the explosive play ratio, and those two things are going to be critical on Saturday. And with a team that's doing a really good job of turnover ratio, I think they're plus 12. That's going to be a major factor in the game. And we've done a good job of protecting the football, and we're going to have to continue to do that. And the area that I think we can get better, that I think we talked about like a week or two ago, is that that we're creating some of those turnovers as well. So I give PJ a ton of credit. He kind of grew up professionally like I did, where before you can learn to win, you got to learn how not to lose games. And there's certain things that will get you beat, and that's turning the ball over, and that's giving up explosive plays, and that is not playing with great effort. And when you watch PJ's teams play, they typically check those three boxes. And then after that, then it's about doing all the things you need to do to be aggressive to take the next step. And I think PJ comes from a similar school, and that's what I see on tape.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, James.